On February 9th, my next guest, and I quote, plans to do more damage to Philly than Nick Sirianni when he makes the trip up from Atlanta, Georgia to the city of brotherly love when he faces Philly's own Miles Lee. He's the baby Goose, Reese Watkins. How's it going tonight, Reese?
Going good. It's going good, man. Can't complain.
Yeah, that stung to read that out loud. I laughed when I saw it earlier. Still not over that loss, but we'll go on from there.
Sorry, man.
So we're just under 3 weeks away. You're coming up to Philly. How's camp been so far?
It's been good. It's been good. Spent like the first part of it out in Vegas at Extreme Couture, and then I went back to Georgia to ATT Team Lima, and it's been going good. You know, a lot of hard work, but I've been feeling like the most prepared I've ever been for a fight.
Awesome. Then you are facing a former title challenger, Miles Lee, and his long-awaited return to the cage. His last fight was his title challenge. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on him as an opponent, and more importantly, like, what do you see a win over him doing for you in your career at this point?
Well, what do I see for him doing for my career? I would really like to try to make a run to get on Dana White's Contender Series this year. So I don't want to look ahead or anything. You know, I'm taking him very seriously. He fought for a title, so he's obviously very, very, very good. He possesses skill, so I'm not overlooking him at all. But for what he does for my career, he's to me, all due respect, he's just another number. So I'm trying to add to my record. I have like no ill will towards him. And then what do I see of him as an opponent? I see a fighter that I've fought a lot of times before, southpaw wrestler. So it's just the same old for me, same old.
Nice. And then, does the idea of facing a hometown fighter pique your interest at all, or is it just another body, kind of how you said?
I mean, a little bit. I know Philly sports fans can be intense, so I see it as like good reps, for hopefully later in my career. But I'm not too bothered by it. But it is a little bit exciting. I can hopefully steal some of his shine. So it's exciting.
Yeah, this one is definitely like his gym is literally like up the road from the arena. Oh, so really? Like you're not only local, you're like hyper local.
Yeah.
But you made your pro debut last April, and then you followed up with another win in September. Both fights you won by finish.
Yeah.
Do you see your finish rate professionally as well as your Emmy? That was also pretty heavily finished. Benefit or disadvantage against Miles, who's pretty much gone to the decision every time?
I definitely see it as a finish. Again, all due respect to Miles, I don't think he's ever fought someone who does what I do to people. I get finishes. I think of the only MMA fight I've never finished is my first fight when I was 18. So I don't think that he's fought someone with he's maybe fought someone with like the style I have, but the amount of damage I can inflict on people, I don't think he's ever experienced that. It's one thing to train for it, but it's another thing to experience it. So I like to think with my last opponents, I feel like I've kind of broken them mentally. So I don't think it's something he's prepared for.
And then a little bit more about the gym you train at. You mentioned ATT Lima's your home gym.
Yeah.
Under Diego and Douglas Lima, both obviously known fighters. I only know the flyweights down there. Like Shamel Finley was there. Now he's down, I think, at like the HQ basically.
He's back. He goes back and forth. Yeah.
Awesome. Because I'm waiting for him to come back. He had a little disappointment last time out, but who have you been training with? Because again, I don't know any of the middleweights, yet alone anyone outside of flyweights.
I train with Tresean Gore when he's in town. So he's at MMA Labs, I think, right now, prepping for his fight. He's fighting sometime in February. But I train with Trey a lot, and then I train with Diego a lot. Like Diego works with a lot of the pros. So I do a lot of reps with Diego. And then I train with my wrestling coach, Kevin Sherrill. He used to wrestle D1 in Northern Iowa. So I train with him a lot. And then Ernesto Rivera, he's a grappler. And then Paul Idea, he ADCC vet, and Sergio. So I train with them mostly. And then my striking coach, Brantley Fur. So those are the people I get the most reps with.
Head over February 9th, typical fan will pull up the typology. They'll see 2 pro fights. But you've done a lot of else before that. Before you actually went into MMA. Yeah. Want to talk about like what you've done prior and the championships you held in others?
Yeah. So before I had my first MMA fight, I had some kickboxing fights when I was 17. And then at the same time I was doing MMA, amateur MMA, I was doing amateur ties. So I ended up with 5 amateur. Yeah, 4. I was 4-1 as a tie fighter, amateur tie fighter, and I held a NFC 185 amateur Muay Thai belt championship, and then I won a couple IKF tournaments, so I have a couple IKF belts from that. So I have a pretty. I feel like I went into my pro career with a lot of fights, more fights than people normally have. I ended up going in with 4-1 as an amateur and 5-1 as an amateur MMA fighter. So all that, going in with over 10 fights, a dozen fights. I feel like it's really helped with cage time and like ring experience and ring IQ. So I have a lot of experience with kickboxing and Muay Thai.
Hitting back on the team or Team Lima, who's coming up with you?
This is my wrestling coach, Kevin Sherrill. He's coming up, and then one of my friends, Wade Powers. He's coming up.
And then you kind of mentioned you see this, you see yourself finishing Miles. You have a prediction of how, not to expose any game plan or anything, but like knockout submission any way possible?
Honestly, I see it as a submission. Honestly, I feel like I'm gonna put him on his back. Drop him with something, and I feel like I'll be able to get my first submission of my career. I feel like that opportunity will open up. Guys start getting hit on the ground, they turn away sometimes. So I feel like this would be the good opportunity to get my first submission of my career.
And then with the promotion as well too, middleweight division is pretty thin with CFFC.
Yeah,
I can now say it, at least on the card. The title is on the line on this card as well.
Mm-hmm.
Beating a hometown kid kind of puts you right in that line, assuming Kyle Dawkins gets signed with the win or his opponent gets signed. If you don't get the Contender Series called, is that something you want to look forward to, is possibly going for the regional title?
Most definitely. I would love to fight Kyle. Again, I don't want to look past Miles at all. I'm just trying to plan out my own future. I would love to fight Kyle. His last opponent, Greg, I helped Greg. Gave him a lot of rounds prepping for Kyle. And I feel like that's Kyle has had a great, or not has had, he has a good career, a great career. He's obviously done more than I have in my career. He's gotten to the big show. He's proved he can do it. But I feel like that would be a fight I'm super interested in. I feel like I could, really, really make a statement and make my name known if I beat Kyle. And so, if that fight happens, Kyle, I would love to come fight you.
Last question, really. Younger kid. I'm always interested about this. I don't want to call you a kid. You're not a kid. A younger male. Compared to me, you're a kid. I'm old.
Yeah.
How did you get into the sport itself? Like, I know, like, it's weird knowing like some of you all are introduced by YouTube at this point. What made you get into the sport?
I started doing jiu-jitsu when I was 14, and my original gym closed down, so I switched gyms, and I started training with Bruno Forzato. And he had some MMA fights, and then he's friends with Davi Ramos. I remember Davi and I think Wilson Hayes came up here. I think because one of them was on like the UFC 236 or something, I think, which was in Atlanta. And I remember around the time, getting ready for that, and just that prior year, he asked me if I was interested in MMA, and he thought I'd be good at it. So I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try. And I started doing some Thai classes and boxing classes. And I just fell in love with it. And then I remember I went with my dad to watch a pay-per-view at not Hooters. We went to one of those like restaurants or whatever, those sports bars, something, where they show the fights. Twin Peaks, I think. Yeah, we went to Twin Peaks. And it was UFC 227 with Cody Garbrandt and TJ, I think, and DJ versus Cejudo 2. And, ever since then, I just kind of fell in love with MMA. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I kind of just went from there.
Nice. Yeah. And like I said, that was the last question for me. I'm going to pass the mic to you. Especially as a regional fighter, you don't get paid enough to fight in the cage. You kind of get support by your sponsors and, supporting background characters. Mike's all yours to kind of shout those people out, shout out your social media, everything that's on your mind. Mike's all yours.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be here without Barber Orthopedics. They keep me healthy. Fighting, you get banged up. Any sport, you get banged up, but especially fighting. So they keep me healthy and functioning. And then Sisters Lemonade, if I ever want like a refreshing drink after training when I'm not in camp, I'll crack open one of their bottles. So without them, I wouldn't be here. And then, if you want to follow me on social media, it's Watkins. No, it's my bad. It's Baby Goose MMA on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. And then February 9th, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. UFC Fight Pass as well as in person, obviously.
Yes,
I always like to shout out the guys that are coming up because obviously you're not going to sell as much as the local kid.
Yeah.
So if you're in person, CFFC.tv, grab his name from the drop-down menu.
Yeah.
He gets a little kickback on the ticket. Best of skill, and we'll see how it goes. Have a good one.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it.